You know, I've never tried milling someone out before, but I don't think I'll have much trouble with the help of Circu, Demure Lobotomist. Hello, and welcome to the Trinisphere, where Timmy, Johnny, and Spike battle over all things EDH. I'm Hog, the Spike, and today we're going to find out how far we can push Bolas' Citadel before we break it. Before we jump in, remember to like this video to see more like it, and subscribe to watch all of our upcoming gameplays and deck techs. Hit that bell icon to receive a notification whenever we drop a new video. Let's break down our commander. Circu, Demure Lobotomist, is 2, a blue and a black, for a 2/3 human wizard. He says, whenever you cast a blue spell, exile the top card of target player's library. Whenever you cast a black spell, exile the top card of target player's library. And your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as a card exiled with Circu, Demure Lobotomist. We have two main focuses with this deck. One, a cohesive mill strategy focused around our general and efficient Demure spells. And two, a combo package centered around attaining massive value with Bolas' Citadel. We also have two main combos. One, Sensei's Divining Top and an Aetherflux Reservoir combined with our Bolas' Citadel lets us generate infinite life to the point where we can cannon each of our opponents and win the game. Now let me break down that first combo. If we have our Bolas' Citadel out, we can look at the top card of our library and then pay life equal to the top card's converted mana cost to cast it from the top of our library. If we have Sensei's Divining Top on the top, we can pay 1 life to cast it, put it into play, tap it and draw a card, put it back on top, and then keep casting it, keep paying 1 life, and dig through our library each time drawing 1 card, paying 1 life, until eventually we have found our Aetherflux Reservoir, which is a 4 mana artifact, the cannon, if you will, that says whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. As we go through this chain, we'll have cast the top already, we'll have activated it a bunch of times, and each time we're casting it and paying the life to cast it. So when we cast the Aetherflux Reservoir, even though it wasn't in play, it will still count all of the previous iterations of top that we had cast previously. When we find the Aetherflux Reservoir, the next time we cast top, we'll gain all of that life back, and then we just keep doing it until our life total becomes positive. And then obviously the second half of Aetherflux Reservoir is pay 50 life, Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So that's our first combo. Our second combo that we're looking at is Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter. Classic spiky combo. We've got Isochron Scepter, obviously being a 2-mana artifact with imprint. When Isochron Scepter enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. And then it has pay 2 and tap. You may copy the exiled card. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Almost always, we're going to want to imprint a Dramatic Reversal, 1 and a blue instant, untap all non-land permanents you control. Now, this is usually used to attain infinite mana with any rocks that net positive. So if we have a Soul Ring and another mana rock, each iteration is going to net us 1 mana. You know, if we have a Felwar Stone and a Soul Ring, that'll be 1. If we have a Soul Ring and a Grim Monolith, each iteration will net us 3 colorless. That's what most decks are trying to do, generate infinite mana and then win the game. This deck, we still have that option, but each time we cast Dramatic Reversal, Circu, Demure Lobotomist will exile the top card of target player's library. So as long as we have 1 or 2 rocks that tap for 2 mana and we can activate Isochron Scepter, we can just exile the entirety of our opponent's libraries. And we won't even have to worry about how much mana we have. In this deck, we really have 2 commanders. Like I said before, Circu, Demure Lobotomist is the one at the helm of the deck, but if you will, the secret commander here, the one that we're focused on breaking, is our Bolas' Citadel. And we talked about it a little bit before, but just to give you a refresher, Bolas' Citadel is 3 black, black, black for a legendary artifact that says you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may also play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, you pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. And then a little sprinkle on top, text at the bottom says tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, each opponent loses 10 life. So we've broken this deck tech up into a couple of categories. First off, let's start with our win cons. We touched these briefly. Obviously having Bolas' Citadel, our Aetherflux Reservoir, our Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal, and our Sensei's Divining Top. These are our key pieces. We also have a Paradox Engine in here for good measure. Normally when I'm playing Isochron Scepter, I like to throw the Paradox Engine in there. It's just another way to generate absurd value. You drop a Paradox Engine. If it goes unanswered, you're probably going to win the game. Moving on, we've got our ramp. We need to get to our win cons, and this deck is really low to the ground. Like Bolas' Citadel is our only 6-drop, and it's the top of our curve. And then below that, Paradox Engine is our only 5-drop. Everything else is 4 CMC or less. And we want to keep it that way because we don't want to be paying a ton of life when we get our Bolas' Citadel out. We want to be able to chain through our deck and not have to worry about, oh man, I ran out of life, I can't keep going. So we're playing a lot of mana rocks, and a lot of them cost 1 or fewer mana. We have at 0 converted mana cost, Chrome Mox, Everflowing Chalice, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mox Amber, Mox Diamond, and Mox Opal. At 1 converted mana cost, we also have Dark Ritual, 1 black, add triple black to your mana pool, Mana Vault, and Soul Ring. At 2 CMC, we have Dimir Signet, Ethereum Sculptor, 1 and a blue, 1/2 Vidalcan Artificer that says artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This helps reduce the cost of our more expensive mana rocks, our 2-drops, and it brings down the cost of some of our other more powerful artifacts that we'd like to get down a turn earlier. We also have Talisman of Dominance. And on the higher end, at 4 mana, we have Kruk Clan Ironworks, which turns all of our late draws mana rocks. If we draw a late game Lotus Petal, a late game Mox Amber, maybe we can't turn it on, maybe we don't have the legendary creature. It turns those dead mana rocks into more mana, as it says, sacrifice an artifact, add 2 colorless to your mana pool. And that can also let us just go off. If we have an unchecked Kruk Clan Ironworks and we play a bunch of artifacts in a turn, we can just sack them all, make a ton of mana, and keep digging through our library. We also have to find our win conditions. So after ramp, we've got some tutors. Only 4, but I like all 4 of them. They're very potent. We've got Fabricate, 2 and a blue, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is yes, it only tutors for artifacts, but we can get big and small. We have Inventor's Fair, it's a land, so technically it doesn't take up a slot, and this one is fantastic. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, you gain 1 life. It taps for colorless, and pay for, tap, sack, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more artifacts. So like we said earlier in the ramp category, we're playing a lot of 0 mana artifacts. So we're almost always going to have our Metalcraft turned on for Inventor's Fair. That small incidental life gain is going to help out later when we want to go down the pay a bunch of life into Bolas' Citadel plan. And then the 4 mana tutor up an artifact in a cinch second ability on Inventor's Fair is also very relevant. We've got Trinket Mage, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human wizard. When Trinket Mage enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this gets us our Sensei's Divining Top, it gets us any of our cheap rocks, our Mana Vault, our Soul Ring. It also gets us some of our more utility-esque artifacts, our Nile Spell Bombs or our Pithing Needles. It's a very good card. I like to have at least 5 targets when I play Trinket Mage, and this deck has plenty. We also threw in a Seat of the Synod just in case, if we ever want to play our Trinket Mage as just a blue Wood Elves. Our final tutor we have is Whir of Invention. It is X blue blue blue, the Chord of Calling in mono blue I like to call it. It has Improvise. Your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1 colorless. Search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So this one's great because it goes directly into play. So in a cinch, we can grab anything. We can grab a win con, or like I said, any of our utility artifacts. You know, someone's amassing this huge board of creatures. We can, in response to attacks, Whir of Invention for Ensnaring Bridge, for instance. I like it a lot. It is certainly very good in this deck. Moving on, our first strategy is our mill. We want to try and mill our opponents out. And obviously, if we don't have the Icecrown Scepter Dramatic Reversal combo, we're just going to have to rely on good old-fashioned Dimir mill cards. But don't worry, because they have quite a few. So we've got Altar of the Brood, Ashiok Dreamrender, Codex Shredder, Dusk Mantle House of Shadow, Ghoul Caller's Bell, Gonti Lord of Luxury, Lantern of Insight, Nephalia Drownyard, Psychic Corrosion, Psychic Surgery, Pixis of Pandemonium, Scribnibblers, Sphinx's Tutelage, and Thief of Sanity. Now, a lot of these probably look familiar to you, as they're straight ripped from the modern Lantern Control deck. So your Codex Shredder, and your Ghoul Caller's Bell and your Lantern of Insight. And that's what I was kind of going for with this deck. Like, you're setting up the top cards. Oh, you have this. Well, I'll cast a blue spell. I'll cast a Brainstorm, for instance, and exile it with Circu. And with everybody's top card revealed with Lantern of Insight, playing the control game is very easy. Our other mill cards are just good value. I mean, we've got a couple lands in here that do it. Duskmantle, little expensive, but it's good to have. I mean, we need as many options as we can get when we need to mill someone's top card. If they have the answer, we need to make sure they don't draw it. We've also got a couple of creatures in here that may seem weird. Gonti, Lord of Luxury, and Thief of Sanity. Now, they're not technically target player mills 3 or anything, but they do look at the top cards of your opponent's library and take something from them. And I would consider that denying your opponent a resource effectively, keeping it secret, and then using it against them. So I like both of these. I think they're both really efficient. Thief of Sanity, 1 blue-black 2/2 flyer. Whenever he deals combat damage, so he's slightly better than Gonti. He doesn't go 4D, but whenever he deals damage to a player, you look at the top 3 cards of that player's library, exile one of them face down, and then put the rest into their graveyard. So you are milling them for at least 2, and then stealing a card, and that's every combat. We want to make sure we find all these things. So outside of Tutors, we've got some good card draw spells. We have Mainstay Ponder, our Preordain, Serum Vision, and Brainstorm package. We also have Mystic Remora, Night's Whisper, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, Discovery Dispersal, Baleful Strix, and then on 3 CMC we have Notion Rain, and 4 we have Paradoxical Outcome. Now, Paradoxical Outcome in playtesting has been insane in this deck. Paradoxical Outcome, of course, is 3 and a blue for an instant. This says return any number of target non-land, non-token permanents you control to their owner's hands. Draw a card for each card returned to your hand this way. Now, this card sees Vintage play, and if it sees Vintage play, I'm pretty sure that means it's good. So basically, whenever we cast this, we're going to want to end of turn or even main phase, tap all of our, our Mana Vault, our Mana Crypt, our Everflowing Chalice, all of these rocks, tap them for mana, Paradoxical Outcome, pick them all back up, draw 6 cards, and then replay them. Replaying them counts towards Storm. It also brings them all in on tap, so we can tap them again for mana. Card is great, accelerates us so far. I'm also focusing on playing a lot of actual Dimir cards here, so our like Baleful Strix and Notion Rain, because I want to get the double trigger off of Circu on as many spells as possible. So when we cast a Baleful Strix, we get to draw a card, but we also get to exile 2 cards from 2 libraries or 2 cards from 1 library, which is good. We want to make sure we're maximizing as much value out of our commander as possible. Removal, we have a couple spells here. We've got Battle at the Bridge, Cast Down, Chain of Vapor, Cyclonic Rift, Reality Shift, Swan Song, and Toxic Deluge. I like all of these. They're all cheap. They're all efficient. Battle at the Bridge, a little new. I figured it would probably be good with the Improvise, with as many artifacts as we're playing. It also gains us life, which is another thing I was slightly focusing on. I just want to make sure we had enough as possible that when we went for the Bolas' Citadel, we weren't ever going to kind of peter out. Battle at the Bridge, X Black Sorcery, has Improvise, target creature gets -X/-X, and you gain X life. 2 mana, kills a mana dork. Late game, maybe someone has an Ulamog or something, and you can just kill it, because obviously it gets around indestructible. We've got our utility spells. We talked about a couple of them already. We have Dimir Charm, a great spell. Again, it is Dimir, so we get the double trigger off Circu, but it's got all relevant modes for us. Choose 1, counter target sorcery spell, destroy target creature with power 2 or less, or look at the top 3 cards of target player's library, put 1 back and the rest into that player's graveyard. We're almost always going to use that 3rd ability, but the 2nd and 1st don't go unnoticed. They're also very good. We can counter a board wipe. We can counter a ramp spell for some mana denial on our opponents. We can get rid of some good utility creatures like a Oracle Moldiah or a Dark Confidant. We have Elixir of Immortality. Bolas' Citadel is out. Pay 1 life, put it into play. Pay 2, sack it, gain 5 life, shuffle Elixir of Immortality and your graveyard into their owner's library. So this is great. It lets us kind of reset our combo. Maybe someone is counter-milling us. Maybe we're getting it back at us and we've gone too low in our library. This is what we need. This is good utility to search up, let us reset our library and keep going. Ensnaring Bridge, good against a heavy aggro deck. Field of Dreams. Now this is an interesting effect, and just like the Lantern of Insight, It is 1 blue for a world enchantment. The top card of each player's library is always face up. There's not many cards that have this effect. A Lantern of Insight, Field of Dreams, and the other is Wizened Snitches from Ravnica. 3 and a blue for a Fairy Rogue, flying 1/3 that says the same thing. Players play with the top card of their libraries revealed. Now this is obviously, like we said, really good information for us when we have Circu out, because it's going to let us get the best choice of who to exile. We've got Narset, Parter of Veils, another new Planeswalker, very good from War of the Spark. 1 blue. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. That's the relevant text, but it has the added bonus of -2. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And she comes in at 5, so you can use her -2 ability twice, and that's just an impulse, on top of locking your opponent out of casting their Blue Sun Zenith. And the cutesy little combo, play Windfall. If we Windfall, 2 and a blue sorcery, each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So I get maximum benefit. My opponent has 7 cards in hand, I have 1, I cast Windfall, they discard their hands. If we have Narset in play, they only draw 1, and I draw 7. Obviously, this is what got Leovold banned. I'm wondering if the rules committee will have a watchful eye out for Narset. We've got Nihil Spellbomb, we talked about that before. If we're milling our opponents a bunch, we want to make sure we have artifacts in play that can exile our opponent's graveyards if they get relevant pieces into their bin, right? Like, we don't want them to have an Eldrazi go to the graveyard. It has a trigger go on the stack to shuffle my graveyard back in. Nope. In response, we're going to pop that graveyard, get rid of that mess so that we can keep going. We've got Pithing Needle, names relevant cards we don't want to deal with, opposing generals, Never Neural's Disc that is threatening to blow up our board of rocks. Psymaster Thopterist is a good fit in this deck. 2 and a blue, legendary creature, Human Artificer. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. He's a 1/4, and he also has pay 1 and a blue, sacrifice 2 artifacts, draw a card. This seemed like a no-brainer to throw in, considering we have so many 0 and 1-drop artifacts, and we can pretty reasonably generate a huge board of 1/1 flyers. For blocking or for attacking, we can go on the offensive. And then he also has upside. I mean, you can sack 2 of your dead cards. Everflowing Chalice, maybe it has 0 counters on it. Mana Vault, maybe it's tapped, you don't want to untap it. Just sack it and draw a card. We've got Shadow of Doubt. I'm hoping I get the ultimate blowout. I hope I get the Strip Mine. Someone cracks a fetch, you cast Shadow of Doubt. It's hybrid Dimir. For an instant, players can't search libraries this turn. And you also draw a card. So it's a cantrip with the added bonus of making someone salty. So it's great. Tormod's Crypt is another effect like Nihil Spellbomb. And of course, we talked about Windfall and Wizened Snitches already. Finally, our last category, we have our recursion cards. We have Buried Ruin, a land, taps for colorless. It also has pay 2 and tap it, sacrifice Buried Ruin, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. And we have Crucible of Worlds, a 3-mana artifact that says you may play land cards from your graveyard. So if we have these two together, it's great synergy. Any artifact we need, we can Buried Ruin, sack it, put it in the bin, grab that artifact back. And then on our next turn, we can play Buried Ruin out of the graveyard with the Crucible, and then get another artifact back. And then, you know, in the scenario where one of these pieces gets destroyed, the other can bring back the first one. And then the third piece of recursion that we have is Yawgmoth's Will. 2 and a black for a sorcery that says until end of turn, you may play cards in your graveyard as though they were in your hand. Cards put into your graveyard this turn are removed from the game instead. So this is insane combo potential, obviously. If we have our Reservoir out, cast all of our cheap mana rocks, maybe sack them all to Kark Clan, cast Yawgwill, recast all of our mana rocks out of the grave. Just lets our storm count go off the chain. Well, that's a wrap for an absolutely busted deck. And if you like winning, I'd highly recommend this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, if you're not first, then you are last.